Now, one of my favorite features on drones is ActiveTrack. I love it, use it all the time. So what is focus track like on the Mavic 3 Classic? You see, ActiveTrack 5.0 was on the Mavic 3 and it has now come as well to the Mavic 3 Classic. Now, this is better than the DJI Air 2S and it's better than the DJI Mini 3 because there are a few different features that you get on version 5.0. So I wanted to test this out to see just how good it was. So I'm going to be showing you today driving a car, on a bike, and also walking through some trees to see how it performs. It's got to be good. It's got to be just as good as that Mavic 3. So I'm going to be showing you that really soon. But before we do that, let's just quick talk about the spec and why this is actually good on here, what the difference is compared to, say, the DJI Air 2S and the Mini 3. And the benefit to using the Mavic 3 for ActiveTrack is that because this has omnidirectional sensoring, this has full 360 degrees of sensoring protection. The Mini 3 and the Air 2S doesn't. So when the drone tracks you, it basically is doing movements to keep you centered in the frame. Now, you could be in a car, you could be on a bike or walking, and it wants to keep you centered all the time, and it will do kind of like drastic movements to keep you centered. Now, that's where the Air 2S and the Mini 3 downfall is. It has no sideways protection, which means it could go and hit something like an object or a tree because the drone can't sense it's there and it will crash into it. The Mavic series, the Classic and the Mavic 3, will stop. It will detect these objects and will avoid them. You can either get them to bypass or brake, and it's that extra level there, which is a big improvement, and why this is basically a step up from those two other drones. Anyway, let's get into the video and show you these 4 different areas I went to and see what you think. Alright, so the first example, I came to this beautiful area in the Lake District. I'm going to be showing you first of all spotlight. It's not really good weather here, but it still looks beautiful. So the spotlight function is fantastic. Now, you can't use this in 5K in any of the focus tracks. So 4K up to 60 FPS is a maximum you can use it. Same with the Mavic 3. So spotlight is really good because the drone basically tracks you or an object. You have to do the movements on the controller yourself, but the drone itself will handle all of the camera panning movements. This is fantastic for real estate or for showcasing a subject, and spotlight I think is brilliant, and it's worked really well on here. You can see it's keeping the car focused and it's doing all the panning motions for me, and all I've got to do is just literally move the sticks left or right. So that's really good. Now, this doesn't have a telecamera, but it does have digital zoom up to 3 times. So you can see here I'm now zooming in. Now, it is digital zoom, so it's just cropping in on that video. So it's not the best quality, but it's decent. You can see here now, this is 3 times zoom. I'm zoomed in. There's some noise there, but you could get rid of that with processing. But what do you think? This is 3 times zoom. So we've got up to 3 times on the Mavic 3 Classic. Now, I'm going to switch over to the ActiveTrack very shortly. I'm going to zoom back out to 1 times. Now, all of these modes you can use in obstacle avoidance as well. So I have those turned on. So keep them on bypass, I would recommend. You don't really want it to break some distance away from you. But spotlight for sure is fantastic. Right, ActiveTrack. So on screen, you have this brilliant menu. It's one of the best things about ActiveTrack 5. You have this on-screen display where you can set the position, whether you want the drone to be. It's like a clock face. You can have it front, back, left, right, or diagonal. So as we now set off, you want to hit go, click record, and the drone will start tracking the vehicle or boat or you. And as you see here, it does a fantastic job. It's a lot smoother when we first saw this ActiveTrack on the Mavic 3 when that came out. So it's had some refinements for sure over this last year, and then the Mavic 3 Classic has got the same. So on the display, if we now hit right, the drone will now start to move to the right hand side, but it does it in a way where it keeps that vehicle centered all the time. And there's no jerky movements here at all. It's nice and smooth. As you can see, that car is perfectly centered. The drone is tracking it really nicely. And now what we can do is we can go into that display again. And this normally is quite challenging for drones, especially at some speeds. You can click forward and the drone will now track from the front. Now, if you're walking, this is dead easy, or going slow on a bike, but anything where you're on a boat or a moving vehicle, the drones struggle with this. But because it's powerful, this drone, the extra motors, you can see it's managing to get in front of that car and able to track the car from the front without basically being right over the top either. It's doing well. Now, especially even on these windy roads, it makes it even more tricky. It's doing it best to stay in front of the car It's doing really good. I'm so impressed. If we hit back now, this is where you get these really cool cinematic pans, because as it's changing position from front to back, it's now basically orbiting around you, and you get this really nice looking shot just like this. I was really impressed with how it handled this on its first basically go at tracking this car. Really good. Now also I mentioned before about the zoom, so we can zoom in here 2 times and you can get pretty close to something now, can't we? Again, remember, it's digital zoom, it's not the best quality, but if you want to get close to something without risking the drone getting too close physically, this is good. And we can again push it all the way to 3 times in ActiveTrack as well. So it's great, and you can do this either on the on-screen displays or using your controller with that zoom wheel if you've got the RC or the RC Pro. Really impressive. This video is sponsored by Artlist. Now Artlist I absolutely love. It is a game changer to me as a creator. They have absolutely fantastic high quality music and sound effects. I always say music and sound effects can transform your video and make it 10 times better. They have such a fantastic library of music that you can just search for any genre, or for instance type in cinematic like I would do, and get thousands of results that you can just drag onto your footage and use copyright free and monetize your videos. And the sound effects get added to daily as well, and these are really good high quality sound effects like whooshes, waves, wind noises. I use them all the time. So if you're interested in checking these out, you get an extra 2 months free with my link. I'll link in the description down below, and the pricing starts at just $9.99 a month for the social creator plan. This covers you for all your different social media platforms. It is absolutely fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. So if you like the music I use on my videos, this is what you need to go and check out. Let's get back to the video. So on to the next location. So here I wanted to see what the Mavic 3 Classic was like on my new electric bike. This bike is really good. I'm having loads of fun with this. Really quite fast as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the controller mounted to the bike and see how the drone tracks me in dark clothing on a dark bike as well. Is there any problems it's going to face? Normally it does. And what you'll notice here is that we used to have this tracking really close to us. It was uncontrollably close, and it was quite annoying. Now the drone is quite far away. It's pushed away now, so it's at some distance away from you, which looks so much better. It's what I was saying over a year ago, that the ActiveTrack, you want to basically show the viewer or yourself where you are, not just you. And the drone now is able to track you and show that landscape as well. It looks really good. You can even see me here quite exhausted pedaling this heavy bike up this steep hill. But I'm really impressed with how this ActiveTrack has performed. The obstacle avoidance as well, 360 degrees of obstacle avoidance. So this will detect anything and will avoid it whilst tracking you. So it is great. And I'm so happy that we can now see on the ActiveTrack as well where we actually are. It worked great. You can see here I was having loads of fun, and the drone just there off behind us. Really good in this location. It worked flawlessly yet again, even tracking me in dark clothing at high speeds. Okay, and in this example here in the car, it's tracking me really great again on this road through some trees. But I'm going to talk to you very quickly about the C1 limitations that happens with ActiveTrack. So on the Mavic 3 Classic, we have this fantastic C1 certification. Same on the Mavic 3 through a firmware update. But if you try and track yourself from greater than 50 meters away, so if you're quite far away here from that car, you will get this message. This is basically saying that under EU regulations, the subject and the aircraft should be within 50 meters to start ActiveTrack. So as you can see, all the examples I've been doing, I've been flying further away than 50 meters, but it has to be in a 50 meter bubble. If you try and start it away from 50 meters, you'll get this message. So make sure it starts within 50 meters, and then you can basically track you for the length of the battery. But it's got to be within a 50 meter bubble between you and the aircraft. That's not DJI, that's not the Mavic 3 Classic, that's EU regulations. And the final example I want to show you walking. So everyone walks at different paces, so bear that in mind, and I'm also walking uphill. But I want to focus on here is what it's like tracking me when there's objects as well. Does it keep track, or does it lose me and just completely go all over the place. So I'm just walking up here now, and you can see it's tracking me quite smoothly here. I'm going fairly slow. I'm just through that bush there, it kept lock onto me. Now I'm coming up to two quite large bushes or trees, so it gets quite close to me here, and it tends to do this when you're walking. It wants to stay pretty close to you. So I can manually push this back now just on the controller, so that's a bit better. I can see the landscape. Now as I'm walking towards this first bush here, you can see here that that box, it loses me, but as I keep walking, it then identifies me again, locks back on. It's lost me again with this other massive bush, and now it identifies me again and locks straight back on. So that's really impressive that it can do that without just going all over the place and just going wrong. It does that, and it worked really quick. And then again, I can just change that position. So now I've got it just offset, centered. It's losing me a little bit here through this tree. It's looking to see where I am. And then as I keep walking, it's just trying to find me, and then it's found me, and then continues doing it. So it is really good. And I love that it's now a bit further away from me, so we can see this awesome landscape. 810 meters high this was. It was a fantastic area. But overall, really impressed. Car, bike, and walking, spot on. Overall, I think the focus trackers worked really well on here. ActiveTrack and Spotlight are my two main features that I use all the time. I want to be able to get to an environment like on a boat or a car or something, and this tracked me, and it has worked really well. I love the on-screen displays that you could just hit different directions and it would just actively move to those so fast. Whereas on the Air 2S and Mini 3, you're limited in kind of like a parallel or just front back, and it's not as intuitive or as fast. So this has worked really good. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know your thoughts about any ActiveTrack on here. What do you think about it? I think it's the best that is currently out. I can't wait to see what ActiveTrack 6 is going to bring, but so far, this is like the best version of ActiveTrack you can possibly get. If you're interested in picking up this Mavic 3 Classic, it is awesome. I really do like it. Unless you need the tele lens, I would just not bother getting the Mavic 3. I'd get the Mavic 3 Classic and save some money. I'll link in the description below if you want to go and check that out. But hope you enjoyed that. If you're new on here, like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.